You have to convince yourself over and over again, and then you need to really look at things objectively. We all have values intrinsically as being human beings. That's one of the big mistakes early entrepreneurs make. When you're first out of college, you got your first business. Let's say you have an idea for a business that you think is the best idea in the world, or for a business you're really passionate about that you feel could really bring value to people's lives. And that's great. But if you don't know how to read a balance sheet, and you don't know how to market, and you don't know how to draw a profit from the business and what real cash flow projections look like and things like that, you can learn it yourself and it'll take you 10 years to do it. Or you can partner with somebody who already does this. The problem with that is that those partners are very expensive. You see this on Shark Tank. This is a great example. Someone comes in, I've got this great idea, and they always overvalue their company because they have the idea, they have no logistics, they have no distribution, they've got no back office support. And so they say, this idea should be worth 100 times what it is. And the sharks are like, don't you realize there's a bunch of things that need to go in to make this make sense? And they're worried they're going to get knocked off in the market. Someone can steal the idea and go and do it themselves. And so the problem a lot with the artists is they get so fixated on the value of what it is they're trying to provide, and they don't really pay attention to the value of everything else in a business. As a lawyer, I would provide services. And then I realized that the business side of things is very tricky. Fortunately, I am naturally very good at that, and I studied a lot. So for me, I'm the business person in my law firm. That's what I do. I have somebody who's in marketing. I have somebody who provides the legal services. So it's a very different thing. And so if you're an artist and you want to have a business, you have a great idea, first you've got to understand who you are. If you're really somebody who's passionate about cupcakes, you're not going to be passionate about ROI, return on your investment. You're not. You love making people happy when they see the cupcakes. You should be the person who's providing the cupcakes. But don't devalue the other services of people who can understand that you need to turn a profit. How long is it before I'm going to make a profit? Because if you can't make a profit, the venture is doomed to failure, end up in debt. So a lot of times in business, people think they have the artist mindset, which I started with, that I'm going to provide the best legal services. And by the way, if I don't have a marketing channel and I'm providing the best legal services, the market's not going to know. So how do you do that? But how you sell yourself in marketing. An example, my personal failure. I would go and I'd say, I'm going to be a low-cost legal service provider. So I'd go out and I'd charge people half what other lawyers were charging. And you know what? I got beat up over my bills just as much as I did when I was charging what the market rate was. And I learned a very powerful lesson that people aren't necessarily going to value your services. You have to value your own services. If you know what the market value is for your services, I should have been charging literally twice what the market was because I was a better lawyer, honestly. But instead I was charging half to try and give everybody a break, and they still would argue over my bills. And so I have to understand my value. Early on as an entrepreneur, early on as a business person, early on even in your human life journey, you have to discover your value. We all have values intrinsically as being human beings. In my mind, I'm a Christian, so I believe we're all children of God, so we all have some intrinsic value. We all have an inherent value. But then the question is, what value am I providing to other people? What services am I providing to other people? And you've got to get your head around the services you're providing to other people because you get paid for the amount of services you provide. But there is an implicit negotiation in there about how much your services are worth. If you don't believe your services are worth a lot of money, then you're not going to get paid a lot of money, even if the service is worth a lot of money. It's the honest to God truth. Dan Kennedy, he's a great motivational speaker and talked about business. A lot of his stuff is amusing, but also true. He said his first key to success was to quote his price, looking in the mirror over and over again. So he would say, my price for speaking engagement is $50,000 without even blinking. And I got to tell you, I've seen people who come in and say, my price is $50,000. People can smell it. And so I would go home and I'd look in the mirror and I'd say, I'm going to quote my price. And I did this over and over again. If I'm ever asking for a price in a negotiation, say it in the mirror until you believe it. My price for this deal is 60 million, long pause. I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to interrupt. Who talks first loses. You didn't see any hesitation in my eyes. I don't even know what deal I'm talking about, but I'm worth $60 million. You got to prepare yourself for that. And I do believe that I'm worth $60 million. You've got to believe that you are bringing that value to it because that's the truth. And someday you will be at that point. It's all psychological here as to what value am I bringing. Because if you have a hesitation or doubt about what you're worth, the customer, the client will feel it and they're going to devalue you if you devalue yourself. Making the shift from not valuing yourself where you should value yourself, that's a process too. You have to convince yourself over and over again, and then you need to really look at things objectively. What value are you providing? Look at what the market's providing. Look at what you can do and begin to look for where your value adds are, what you bring that's better. You're not going to change that value overnight. I grew up as a poor Catholic kid, so for me, money was a problem. Poor was righteous and rich was evil. Money's not for us, success wasn't for us. These were all messages that were impregnated in my mind at a young age. And so it was a journey to reprogram myself that I should be successful, and being successful, I could give back. The real moment that happened in my late 30s and early 40s, obviously I had a spiritual conversion that was very important, but I began to realize the amount of service that I could provide other people, I would be compensated for that. And when I started seeing, when people started telling me how the service we were providing for them changed their lives, I started realizing, you know what, this is valuable. And this is something that I did. And so the success obviously helps, and then it snowballs. You see the more bigger and bigger successes that you have. But it is a struggle at a young age. A lot of people get into business, they want to be successful because a lot of people have told them they're never going to be successful. And so they're trying to prove everybody wrong. I'll show you. And that's okay for the first million maybe, but you can't sustain it that way. You can't have meaningful success when you're trying to prove everybody else wrong. To get really to the point where you could be really successful and have it all, the family, the spiritual life, the friends, the other thing, you've got to be in a situation where you're not trying to prove it to anybody. You're just trying to do a good job for people and bring a meaningful change in people's lives. And that meaningful change may be the cup of coffee in the morning that they get. Starbucks is a great example. Starbucks doesn't provide coffee, it provides the experience. And so millions of people every day go and get their Starbucks morning experience. And they go in there and they feel the Italian coffee shop vibe when they get the smell and the encounter. The problem with that is, the first time you get it, you get a huge dopamine hit. You walk in there and you're like, this is so amazing. By the 1,000th time, you're still paying the $5 looking for the first dopamine hit, and it's going down and down and down. And then you just become addicted to get your coffee. That's a valuable service. So the owner of Starbucks should look at that and say, oh, wow, you know what? This is great. And they price their coffees accordingly. That's why you pay $5 for a cup of coffee at Starbucks. If you're a young person and you are really good at a particular thing, or you have a product you want to bring to market, you're an artist, and I say artist, not a painting artist, but an artist, somebody who just loves what they do and they want to bring this great service to the market, and you're passionate about that, you first have to really understand that you probably don't have the other skills that are required. And the first other big skills required is some sort of entrepreneurial mindset or some sort of business mindset to understand what it is that you need to do to actually make the business profitable. That's a huge step. And you can do it in a couple of ways. You can learn it yourself, and that takes some time, and you should learn it yourself because you're gonna need to know eventually. A faster or more expedient route is to find someone who is really as good at that as you are at making cupcakes or interior decorating or whatever the service you're providing is. You find the business person to pair up with. That's one way to do it. And by the way, the next type of person you're going to need is a person who's good at managing people, because business people generally aren't always the best managers. I'm really good at seeing opportunities. I'm really good at vision. I'm really good at planning. But as far as execution goes, I really need managers to help lead the team. I can lead the team at a very high level, but actually the day-to-day management, I'm not good at that. And so we bring in managers. And those are people who are leaders at a more granular level. They're able to deal with the day-to-day, the metrics, the KPIs, but that's really at the stage when you start having employees and things. There's really a few different types of people in business. You either have a business acumen, a technical acumen, a leadership acumen, or managerial acumen. Those are the kind of the big ones that populate business, and you need those different people. Another huge mistake that people make in business is when you start hiring people at a young age, you hire your first employee, you will hire someone who's exactly like you. And that is a terrible mistake. You need to hire somebody who's exactly not you. And I'll give you an example. I'm pretty outgoing. I'm an extrovert. I can talk to anybody. I love people. And I hired a bunch of people like me, but not a lot of people who are what I would call a grinder, somebody who can just get in there and do the work. That's harder. Now I can grind. I ground all the way through law school, but that's not what I really love to do. I'm entrepreneurial, so I like to take chances in business, but I'm not cautious. And so I have to hire somebody who's cautious to come in and do my books, my accounting and bookkeeping. So they make sure there's every penny's accounted for. I've taken more of a role as a decision maker and the visionary in my firm. I've hired salespeople. I'm okay at sales. I'm not great, but I hire salespeople. They're much better at sales than I was. I look for people who are better negotiators than I am because I like to do deals. But negotiation, you got to walk away from a deal. So I hire some people who are at least with me when I'm doing negotiation, where they can tell me, what do you think? Is that a good deal or not? What do you think the points are? And so we begin to build groups around us. In my organization, I'm the guy who plans strategy and direction. I know where the company's going. I know what the next markets we want to penetrate. I know what the product lines are. And I know how to recognize how to turn a profit and how to amplify that profit. And I'm really good at telling whether the systems and processes we have are good. And I'm 1,000,000% committed to giving the best service to our clients. If I hear a client complaint, I want to sit down with that client and find out what's wrong, what happened, who messed up. I can fix it. That's what I love to do. I love to fix those problems. But I've got a lot of other people around me who are much better than me at a lot of different things and fill it in. And they're very different personalities. They're probably not people I want to necessarily go out and have lunch with even. My accounting team, they're great, but they're not watching football games and drinking beers on the weekends. They're just not. They're a different personality type. But I wouldn't trade it for anything because they're really good at their jobs and they're super cautious. And that's great when you're dealing with finances. You want to make sure your books and records are 1,000,000% accurate. So it's important to surround yourself with people who are different than you. And that's one of the big mistakes early entrepreneurs make. When you're first out of college, you got your first business, you're going to want to pair up, even to get a business partner who's just like you. And you need somebody who's exactly the opposite of you, or at least has skills that complement your weaknesses. And if you can put your ego aside and do that, you're going to save yourself at least 5 years in business. If you have anything to say, comment below. Look forward to hearing from you.